The studio lights hummed with electric anticipation as producers made final adjustments to the set of The Jennifer Hudson Show. This wasn't just another celebrity interview, it was a rematch that nobody had explicitly requested, yet everyone seemed to need. Jennifer Hudson stood backstage, vocally warming up with scales that could shake mountains. Her Grammy-winning voice was legendary, but today she'd need more than musical talent. She'd need the grace that had carried her through personal tragedy, the wisdom earned from decades in an unforgiving industry, and the courage to ask questions others were afraid to voice. 5 minutes to showtime, called a producer. Jennifer nodded, smoothing her emerald dress. She thought about their first interview, the tension, the deflections, the feeling of talking past each other rather than to each other. Today would be different. It had to be. Across the building, in a private dressing room lined with mirrors and fresh flowers, Meghan Markle prepared herself mentally. The Duchess of Sussex, though she no longer used the title professionally, understood the weight of this moment. Every appearance was analyzed, dissected, weaponized. Every word became a headline, every gesture a controversy. She adjusted her tailored cream blazer, checking her reflection not out of vanity, but strategy. In the mirror, she saw not just herself, but the projection of 1,000 think pieces, the echo of endless speculation. Today, she decided she would control her own narrative, or at least try. The audience filed in, buzzing with curiosity and judgment in equal measure. Some came as supporters, others as skeptics. Most came simply because they couldn't look away from the spectacle that Meghan's life had become. A modern fairy tale that had curdled into something more complicated, more human, more real. Welcome back, everybody. Jennifer's voice filled the studio with warmth that felt genuine, earned. Today we have a guest who needs no introduction, though she's been introduced, reintroduced, and introduced again more times than perhaps anyone in recent memory. Please welcome Meghan Markle. The applause was respectful, measured, neither hostile nor adoring. Meghan walked onto the stage with the posture of someone who'd spent years being photographed, analyzed, criticized. Her smile was professional, her stride confident, but Jennifer, with the emotional intelligence of a true artist, noticed the tension in her shoulders, the guardedness in her eyes. They embraced briefly, a gesture for the cameras, but also something more. Two women who'd both been underestimated, who'd both transformed pain into purpose, who'd both learned that public life meant living in a house made of glass. "Thank you for having me back," Meghan said, settling into the guest chair. "Thank you for coming back," Jennifer replied, and there was a subtext there, an acknowledgement that returning after a difficult first conversation took courage. Jennifer began gently. "Meghan, I want to start by asking you something simple but important. How are you, really?" Meghan paused, surprised perhaps by the directness, the simplicity. "That's actually a harder question than it sounds," she admitted. "I think I'm learning to be okay with not always being okay. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense," Jennifer said. "I've been there. I think most people have." Something softened in Meghan's expression, a crack in the armor. The hardest part about public life is that people want you to be either perfectly fine or dramatically falling apart. There's no room for the messy middle, where most of us actually live. Jennifer leaned forward. "Let's talk about that messy middle. You've launched several initiatives focused on women's empowerment, parents' rights, mental health advocacy. What drives that work for you?" "Personal experience," Meghan answered more openly now. "I've struggled with feeling powerless in situations where I should have had agency. I've watched people I love suffer because systems failed them. The work I do now, it's not performative, it's personal." "Tell me about one specific moment that changed your approach to advocacy," Jennifer pressed. Meghan considered this. "There was a woman who wrote to me after I spoke publicly about my own mental health challenges. She told me she'd been planning to end her life, but hearing someone she perceived as having everything admit to struggling, it made her feel less alone. She got help. That letter sits on my desk. It reminds me why transparency, even when it's uncomfortable, matters more than perception." The audience was quiet now, genuinely listening. Jennifer nodded. "That vulnerability you're talking about, it's powerful, but it also invites criticism. How do you handle that?" "Not always gracefully," Meghan admitted with a rueful smile. "I'm learning that you can't control how people interpret your truth. You can only control whether you speak it. Some days I do that better than others." "Let's address something directly," Jennifer said, her tone still warm but unflinching. There's a perception, fair or not, that you're controlling, calculating, always managing the narrative. How do you respond to that? Meghan's jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't deflect. I think that criticism says more about discomfort with women who advocate for themselves than it does about me. When women set boundaries, we're called difficult. When we tell our stories, we're called controlling. I've stopped trying to be palatable to people who were never going to accept me anyway. That's fair, Jennifer acknowledged. But is there a difference between advocating for yourself and dismissing criticism entirely? Absolutely, Meghan said. Valid criticism offered in good faith, I take that seriously. But bad faith attacks designed to diminish or silence? Those I've learned to recognize and release. Jennifer smiled. That's wisdom. Hard-earned, I imagine. The hardest, Meghan agreed. They talked about family next, carefully, respectfully, about the challenge of protecting children from a ravenous media cycle, about marriage under extraordinary pressure, about forgiveness, distance, and the complicated nature of love when the world is watching. What do you want people to understand about you that they might not? Jennifer asked as the interview wound down. Meghan thought for a long moment. That I'm trying, that I make mistakes, that I'm not the villain or the saint people want me to be. I'm just a person navigating impossible circumstances as best I can. And that's enough. I'm enough. The audience erupted in genuine applause. Not polite, not performative, but real. Jennifer stood, embracing Meghan once more. Thank you for that honesty, for showing up, for trying. As Meghan left the stage, something had shifted. Not everything was resolved. It never is. But two women had met each other with honesty instead of armor, vulnerability instead of performance. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. The studio audience filtered out slowly, their conversations animated, divided. Some felt they'd witnessed genuine vulnerability. Others remained unconvinced. The internet, predictably, had already begun its dissection before the interview even finished airing. Jennifer retreated to her dressing room, exhausted in the way only emotional labor can exhaust. Her assistant brought tea, chamomile, the way she liked it after intense tapings. She sat before the mirror, removing her stage makeup, watching her own face emerge from beneath the foundation and contour. That was good, Jay, her producer said, poking his head in. Really good, honest. Was it? Jennifer asked, not rhetorically. Or did we just create more content for people to argue about? Maybe both, he admitted, but I think you gave her space to be human. That matters. Down the hall, Meghan sat in her own dressing room, staring at her phone, but not really seeing it. Her publicist was already forwarding headlines. Meghan Markle gets real on Jennifer Hudson show. Duchess finally shows vulnerability in emotional interview. Markle's calculated comeback, tears, or strategy. She set the phone face down on the table. Harry had texted, "Proud of you." That took courage. Did it? Or was courage what it would take to simply stop? To walk away from the spotlight entirely? To refuse to explain herself anymore? She wasn't sure she knew the difference between bravery and stubbornness anymore. A knock on her door. "Come in," Meghan called. Jennifer stood in the doorway, no longer in her stage dress, but in comfortable sweats, hair pulled back. Without the cameras, without the audience, she looked different, more like a sister than an interviewer. "Hey," Jennifer said softly, "mind if I come in?" "Please," Meghan gestured to the chair across from her. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that exists between two people who've just been through something together. "I wanted to check on you," Jennifer said, off the record, off everything. Meghan smiled, tired but genuine. "That's kind of you. I'm processing, I guess." "It's a lot," Jennifer acknowledged. "Being examined like that, I know my interviews aren't as intense as some, but still, having to be on while also being vulnerable, it's an impossible balance." "You did it beautifully," Meghan said. "You were tough but fair. I appreciated that you didn't let me hide, but you also didn't ambush me." Jennifer nodded. "I've been where you are. Not the same circumstances, but I know what it's like when your pain becomes entertainment, when your trauma is reduced to sound bites." She was referring to 2008, the murder of her mother, brother, and nephew, the way the media had swarmed, intrusive and relentless, treating her grief like public property. Meghan's eyes softened with recognition. "I'm sorry. I should have acknowledged that earlier. You've been through unimaginable loss." "We've all got our things," Jennifer said, "but here's what I learned. You can't win the narrative war. You'll drive yourself crazy trying. The only thing you can control is your truth and your integrity. Everything else is noise." "How do you deal with the noise?" Meghan asked. "Music," Jennifer said simply. "Prayer. My daughter. I focus on what's real and let the rest fall away. Some days I'm better at it than others. Meghan laughed softly. Some days I want to delete every app, move to a cabin in Montana, and raise chickens. Would you actually though? Jennifer asked, genuinely curious. No, Meghan admitted. I care too much. I can't just disappear, even when I want to. That's not weakness, Jennifer said. That's purpose. But purpose without boundaries becomes prison. Meghan absorbed this. How do you set those boundaries? Imperfectly, Jennifer said with a smile. But I start by remembering that I don't owe everyone everything. I get to choose where I spend my energy. So do you. People say I'm selfish when I set boundaries. People say a lot of things. Most of them are projections. Jennifer leaned forward. Real talk. I think you're carrying other people's expectations like they're your responsibility. They're not. Meghan felt something crack open inside her chest. Not breaking, but opening. It's hard to let go of wanting to be understood. Understood by who, though? Jennifer challenged gently. By everyone? That's impossible. By the people who matter. That's achievable. But it requires you to define who those people are. Silence settled again, but this time it felt lighter. Can I ask you something? Meghan said. Anything. Do you ever regret being public, being famous? Jennifer considered this carefully. Sometimes I regret the price of it, but I don't regret using my platform. Even when it's hard, even when people misunderstand, I know I'm making music that helps people feel less alone. That's bigger than the noise. What if your platform is just you? Your life? Your choices? What if people only care about the drama, not the work? Then you keep doing the work anyway, Jennifer said firmly. You don't perform for the people who want to watch you fail. You work for the woman who wrote you that letter. You work for your kids. You work for the version of yourself who needed someone to show her it was possible. Meghan's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears back. I'm tired, Jennifer. I'm so tired of fighting. Then stop fighting, Jennifer said. Not stop standing up for yourself. Stop fighting to prove something to people who've already decided who you are. Live your life, do your work, let your actions speak. What if my actions aren't enough? Enough for who? Jennifer asked again, her voice gentle but insistent. Enough for the tabloids. They'll never be satisfied. Enough for yourself. Only you can answer that. Meghan nodded slowly, something shifting in her understanding. I need to ask you something, Jennifer said, her tone changing slightly. And I want you to really hear me. Are you doing this work, the advocacy, the nonprofit, the public speaking, because it fulfills you, or because you're trying to prove you're worthy? The question landed like an arrow. Meghan opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I don't know, maybe both? I think, Jennifer said carefully, that when you can separate those two things, when you can do the work from a place of overflow rather than proving, that's when you'll find peace. How do I get there? Therapy, Jennifer said with a laugh. Lots of therapy, and time, and grace for yourself, and probably more therapy. They both laughed, the tension finally breaking fully. Thank you, Meghan said, for this, for seeing me. Thank you for letting yourself be seen, Jennifer replied. The real you, not the performance. That's the person worth knowing. As they stood to leave, Jennifer pulled Meghan into a genuine embrace. Not for cameras, not for publicists, just two women offering each other recognition and respect. One more thing, Jennifer said as they walked toward the exit. That woman in Montana with the chickens, she exists inside you. You don't have to choose between her and the advocate. You can be both. Meghan smiled, genuinely this time. Chickens and change-making. That's a hell of a combination. The best ones always are. Jennifer said they parted ways in the parking lot, Jennifer to her family, Meghan to hers. The interview would be analyzed, criticized, praised, and picked apart. Think pieces would be written. Social media would rage and defend in equal measure. But in that dressing room, in that conversation, something real had happened. Two women had stopped performing and started connecting. They'd offered each other what the world rarely did. The benefit of the doubt, the grace of complexity, the gift of being seen as human rather than symbol. And sometimes sometimes, that's the most revolutionary act of all. 3 weeks after the interview aired, the world had moved on to its next controversy, its next scandal, its next subject to dissect. But for Jennifer and Meghan, the conversation lingered like a song that stays in your head long after the music stops. Jennifer was in her home studio working on vocals for her upcoming album. The song was about resilience, about finding yourself after the world has tried to define you. As she sang, she thought about Meghan, wondered how she was doing, whether their conversation had brought her any peace. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Meghan. I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. I've been thinking about what you said. Would you want to have coffee sometime?" Actually coffee, not an interview. Jennifer smiled and typed back, "I'd love that. My house. Next Tuesday? I'll make it myself. Fair warning. I'm a better singer than barista." The response came quickly. "Perfect. And I'm a better advocate than cook, so we're even." Meghan arrived at Jennifer's home in Los Angeles, deliberately dressed down in jeans and a simple sweater. No cameras, no publicists, no agenda beyond human connection. Jennifer answered the door herself, also casual, and the two women hugged like old friends rather than recent acquaintances. The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Jennifer's daughter was at school, the staff given the morning off. It was just them, the quiet, and the possibility of honest conversation. They settled in the sunroom, surrounded by plants and natural light. Jennifer poured coffee, competently despite her disclaimer, and they sat across from each other at a small wooden table. "How have you been?" Jennifer asked. "Really?" Meghan took a sip, considering her answer. "Better, actually. That conversation we had, it's been rattling around in my head. The thing you said about doing work from overflow rather than proving, I've been examining that." "What have you discovered?" "That maybe 60% of what I do comes from genuine passion, and 40% comes from trying to prove I'm not what people say I am." Meghan's honesty was raw, unpolished. "That's a hard thing to admit," Jennifer nodded. "But it's the kind of admission that changes things. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now you get to choose." If you like this video, then subscribe.